All right, you're good whenever.
Welcome to the Eephus, episode 36. I'm your host, Justin Ledger, here with Zach Hummel. It's August 7th. We've had a full week since the trade deadline, seeing some new faces and new places. But first, Zach, how are you?
I'm good, man. Can't complain. Yeah, really interesting stuff since the All-Star break and then the trade deadline. It's going to be an exciting finish of the season for sure.
Definitely. We have less topics this week as opposed to last week, thank God, because last week's episode was like an hour and 40 minutes with all the trades that we had to cover. This time, not so much. So first, we're going to cover our favorite stories from the past week. I'll start. Bartolo Colon, complete game, something I never thought I'd see again from Bartolo Colon, but just when you think Bartolo Colon's going to zig, he zags. I can't get a read on this guy ever. Just when you think he's washed up, he'll hit a home run. He'll pitch a complete game. I mean, this guy's the most unpredictable player in the game by far. One of the most beloved players in the game. He had this complete game against the Rangers Friday night. 44 years old. I think that makes him the oldest to ever pitch a complete game. It wasn't a shutout. I think he let up 2 runs actually in like the first inning alone, but he settled down, pitched a complete game, and you know what? I'm a huge Bartolo Colon guy. I don't know who isn't, so this was my favorite story of the week.
Yeah, to your point, it's funny. Like, I think Colon gave up. Yeah, he went 9 innings, gave up 9 hits, 4 runs, and it's like that's a win. When you're that age, like you take any complete game you can get, whether you give up 4 runs or 8 runs, as long as your team wins and you go the distance. Yeah. Who cares? So good for Bartolo Colon.
I think his ERA was like 9 with Atlanta. So
yeah, I can't believe he's still pitching.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. My favorite story of the week. This sort of went under the radar, I think, just because of the teams involved. So some Padres guy, Carlos, I want to say Aswaje is his last name.
I don't know how to say it. Aswaje looks good.
I guess he was in one of the Red Sox trades, but he's kind of been doing well for the Padres, which no one watches, so it doesn't really matter. He hit a home run to center field at PNC Park versus the Pirates, and it hit some Pirates fans straight in the nuts. Like, I don't know how you get hit by a home run ball in the nuts, especially one that just makes it over the fence.
I don't get it either. I don't get how that's even physically possible, don't you? I mean, because in order to get hit in the nuts, you have to see it coming. You see the ball coming straight toward you. You have to be facing it. So you would think, I mean, at the very least, like, put your hands in front. I don't get how that all works. I didn't get a good look at what happened. I just don't get how that whole process unfolds. But needless to say, it was a hilarious clip.
Yeah, he had ample time. I mean, he's pretty much watching it come towards him. And the funniest part is, like, they reviewed it to see if it was a home run because no one knew what happened. And everyone realized what happened after they reviewed it. It just hit the guy straight in the balls and bounced back.
Highlights like that will never get old. Anything involving the crowd where just weird shit happens and the announcers lose it, it will never get old. It's like one of the best parts about baseball.
It's so funny, too, how, like, the announcers, like, whenever anyone gets hit in the groin, like a catcher or something, the announcer will be like, oh, that hit him right where it hurts. Like, they won't even directly talk about it. They'll just be like, oh, that must hurt.
There's always that, oof, and it's, like, silence. You kind of hear, like, laughing, like, in the background, like, just under their breaths. And it's a great clip. It's a great clip. So those were favorite stories, but we do have some big stories to touch on. One of them being Evan Longoria hit for the cycle. I think that was Friday night. It might be. No, that wasn't Friday night. That was actually like 6 days ago, so maybe Tuesday or Wednesday night. But anyways, he hit for the cycle. It was a little controversial, too, because I know there was that play. I think it was on his double that had to get reviewed and everything. But, I mean, it goes down as a cycle in the books. Longoria is a guy that I'm surprised has never hit a cycle before. Longoria has been in the league for what seems like forever, and he's been so good for pretty much his entire career up to this point. And, I was just surprised to see he hasn't hit any cycles before. He hit this one against the Astros, who are kind of scuffling right now. And it was the second cycle in Rays history. The first one was B.J. Upton, who now goes by, of course, by Melvin Upton Jr., and he's in God knows where right now. So,
yeah, I thought it was a good cycle, especially because he needed a double at the end in the 8th or 9th inning. He hit like a line drive to left, and right out of the box, you knew he was going for that cycle. Like, when you play for the Rays, you don't have a ton to play for. So he's just like, I'm going to get this cycle no matter what. And he made it a close play at second, but I like to pose this question to you.
Yeah.
Longoria, is he the best Tampa Bay Ray ever?
I
Has to
think
be.
I think he has to be. I mean, I know Carl Crawford. You can make an argument for him in his prime. Carl Crawford was untouchable, but I think Longoria has like the longer. He's been there for a long time. He's clearly a leader on that team, whereas I don't think Carl Crawford ever had the leader qualities that Longoria has. Longoria, yeah, I'd probably say he's the best Tampa Bay Ray ever, but I'm also not like a Tampa Bay Ray historian. Like I don't know really, like they don't have a ton of guys in history who you can throw out there as like candidates. So I'd say it's between Longoria and Crawford. If there's any Rays fans out there who want to correct me and give me other candidates, I'd be more than willing to listen because I can't think of any others.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Longoria. He's been there for so long. Another name I would say is maybe early Tampa Bay Ray Fred McGriff, but I have no idea what he did.
That's the name that popped in my mind too, like when I was trying to think of other guys. But I really don't know if you could throw McGriff in there because Longoria, maybe this is recency bias, but Longoria and Crawford just stood out to me so much more. Because I consider myself, I guess, fairly knowledgeable about like those players like Fred McGriff and stuff. And I don't think their impact was as significant as like Longoria, Crawford, those type of guys. So
yeah, Fred McGriff only played for 3 seasons with Tampa Bay. So
yeah, he was with Toronto, I think, right, for most of it. So
Toronto, Atlanta, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think Tampa. Yeah, he definitely wouldn't be the best Tampa Bay Ray. Maybe like when you compare overall careers, then you can talk, but not just in a Rays uniform. Another huge story. You can make an argument that overall, just this entire thing as a whole, this was the biggest story of the past week in baseball. Austin Jackson's catch, which a lot of people, this seems to happen after every nice catch nowadays. People need to like put it down. Like, oh, it wasn't that hard because of this and this. Oh, it shouldn't have been a catch. It should have been ruled a home run, which is what people were saying about this catch. Austin Jackson makes this amazing catch where he goes over the wall. He catches it on the other side and he ends up over the wall. So he doesn't bring it back. He goes with the ball over the fence. Now, we might have differing opinions here. I think no question, it shouldn't even be up for debate. That should be ruled a catch, not a home run. There's a lot of people out there who think it should be ruled a catch. I want to know, should it be ruled a catch? What do you think about that?
No, I think it should definitely be a catch. I mean, the balls it takes for someone to like know they're going to flip over the fence and the wall is like hard. It's going to hit you right in your gut.
Right.
And I mean, the Red Sox bullpen didn't do anything to help him when he fell. He pretty much could have fallen on his neck.
Yeah.
And, no one would have had anything differently. But yeah, it reminded me of like if Torrey Hunter made that catch versus the Red Sox.
That's what it reminded me of.
ALCS. I mean, that would have been an unbelievable catch. And this one, he had a little more time on this one. He kind of like timed his jump, but it was still unbelievable catch.
Can you imagine if baseball had a rule in place where you can't go with the ball over? Like baseball's already getting enough shit for being boring. Imagine if they had a rule now where they make it even more boring by saying, nope, that's a home run, doesn't count as a catch, like discount everything that just happened, like crazy play that just happened. That would suck. And especially if it was the Torrey Hunter catch, like say Torrey Hunter caught that ball that Ortiz hit, that grand slam, and they were like, no, nope, grand slam. It doesn't count, Torrey. Sorry. I think Torrey would be kind of upset by that. I don't think he'd agree.
Yeah. So. Fenway, I think, is like one of the only ballparks where like you could actually catch it and go over the fence. There's not many ballparks like that, like anymore, where they're like you could hit a home run and catch it and fall over the fence.
I can't think of any other ballparks that are like that have that short of a porch. At least not that. I mean, there's short porches, but I'm saying on like the Fenway level where it's like almost up to your waist. I mean, barely up to your waist. So, yeah, that should be a catch. I don't know how that's even up for debate. People just like to have hot takes, I guess. So whatever. But the other part of this is that game ended with a Christian Vasquez of all people walk-off home run. I think I think that shows the Red Sox are on the right track right now. It's recency bias, like I was just talking about earlier, but they won 6 straight up to this point. We're recording this on Monday night. They have an off day today, I think. So yeah, tomorrow when this is published, they would still have won 6 straight. Moreland hit a walk-off, Mitch Moreland. So they have 2 walk-offs, I think, in the past week. It seems like everything's going the Red Sox way after we've been talking about a lot of drama off the field for this team. So I want to know what you think. Is this Red Sox team destined to start winning, get on a roll into the postseason, and God knows what could happen? Or do you think this is a fluke? Like, what are your thoughts on the Red Sox as they stand right now?
I'm kind of in between right now. Obviously, the Vasquez walk-off was dope, and so was the Moreland walk-off. Anytime there's a walk-off at Fenway, it's just electric. But
yeah,
I mean, they swept the White Sox. I mean, the White Sox may be the worst team in the MLB right now, so it's not too impressive. I mean, you could tell that whole series, like Jose Abreu was just so frustrated with his team. They're throwing out a bunch of no-name guys. I don't even think the White Sox announcers, Hawk Harrelson, knew who they're throwing out there. I mean, the Indians, that was kind of impressive, but again, the Yankees, just beat the Indians last night. So we'll have to see. I think once you go out on the road, you'll know a lot more about this Red Sox team. Anyone can beat up on the White Sox in your home ballpark. So I'm still not sold, but it was definitely, they beat the teams they should beat, and that's half the battle, I think, in baseball.
Yep, definitely. I think I agree with you there. I mean, in the moment when you're seeing guys like Vasquez and Moreland hit walk-off homers, you're like, oh, this is the team of destiny. We're back now, baby. But then you kind of come back to earth when you realize it's against the Chicago White Sox, and that's a team they should be annihilating, not hitting walk-offs against. They should be winning games 10-2 against the Chicago White Sox. So remains to be seen. I'm going to give it a little more time, a couple more weeks before we really decide if the Red Sox are capable of making a run. I'm not saying they're incapable. I'm just saying let's not get too crazy about the run that they're on right now. If they extend this winning streak and they start beating real capable teams, then I think we'll have a conversation. Speaking of capable teams, the Cubs, I mean, obviously they're defending champs, and they're feeling great right now. They're in first place in the NL Central. So what do? They're saying, you know what, Steve Bartman, we don't even give a shit anymore. Steve Bartman, you're like a hero now. I don't know, like, you're forgiven for everything that you've ever done. Here's a World Series ring for your troubles. I'm interested to see where you fall in this. I think it's just a lame move. If I'm Steve Bartman, I mean, yeah, that's great. You're getting a World Series ring, but in the end, it's really just out of pity. It's like, hey, sorry, we basically abused you all these years. Here's our token of, I hope you accept our apology. So, again, I think it's kind of a lame move. I don't feel too strongly one way or another. But I mean, Steve Bartman, World Series ring. What do you got on that?
Yeah, I think he just wants to be left alone. Like, I don't think he wants his name being brought up anymore, because people, when you bring up Steve Bartman, they just have the negative take with it. And I thought it was interesting that, I guess, when the Cubs pass out the rings to like the staff members and a guy like Steve Bartman, he can't sell the ring to like make money. So that's pretty interesting, just in that case, because maybe he wants the ring just to sell it. But I mean, as a show of pity gift, like, he probably tells the Cubs to fuck off, to be honest.
If you're in Steve Bartman's situation, but with the Red Sox, and you cause this huge thing where, the Cubs may or may not have won the World Series the year that Steve Bartman did all this, like caught that ball or got in the way of that ball, whatever. If you're in that situation with the Red Sox and you have to, listen to people like send you death threats, all this shit, the team doesn't even have your back, you're kind of just an outcast after that. When your team finally wins and they apologize, do you say, you know what? Yeah, thank you. Like I feel like at that point, I wouldn't even be a fan of the team anymore. I'd want nothing to do with the team. I wouldn't want anything to do with the city, the team. I'd probably change my name, move to a new city, start a new life. Like, if I'm Steve Bartman, I want no association with the Cubs. None. Your fanhood should end the second you leave that stadium. Like, that's the way I looked at it. But
they've pretty much, they've pretty much made his life a living hell. Yeah. He still shouldn't have reached over and tried to mess up that ball, but we can all agree the Cubs probably weren't going to win the World Series. So I think the Bartman thing is one of the most overblown things in like Major League history. I think with the Cubs having that huge curse, it got blown out of proportion. But I guess he's still a Cubs fan, so I give him credit for like being able to forgive and forget, I guess.
Well, we kind of have the same, like a similar situation in Boston with Bill Buckner costing the '86 World Series, but. Yeah. It's not the same because it's a fan versus a player, but Buckner, I mean, that guy got death threats too. That guy was separated from the teams. Like, he had no affiliation with the team until they won in 2004. And then of course, they forgive him after the fact. So that's a similar situation. But I think it's the same thing with Buckner. I think the team dragged him through the mud, and I wouldn't want anything to do with the organization. Of course, he came back to Fenway, gave a wave to the fans, and they honored him eventually. But just seems like strange to me that these guys suddenly come back in the picture and are looked at as like heroes that we apologize to after everything. So that's the way I look at it. If I'm Steve Bartman, I'm saying fuck you to the Cubs. But that's pretty much it. Matt Joyce. So this was another big story this week. Matt Joyce, he's on the Oakland A's right now. He's been kind of a journeyman guy over the last few years. I know he played with the Angels and he played with one other team that I'm just blanking on right now. But now he's on the A's. So Matt Joyce suspended 2 games for using a gay slur towards a fan, right? It was towards a fan.
Yeah.
This is nothing new. I think this has happened before in baseball. And then of course we had Puig. It wasn't a gay slur that Puig used, but Puig flipped the fan off and he got suspended for a game. So, but Matt Joyce, gay slur. I guess now the A's, I think, are donating to a charity, like a lesbian and gay community charity. And Joyce apologized, says it doesn't reflect on him. I mean, it's your basic, a guy gets suspended for saying things that he shouldn't have said in 2017. So Matt Joyce, I mean, he's not even like that big of a player anyway, so shouldn't matter too much, but it's a headline story because gay slurs are headline stories nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion on this, I actually have a take. I can't believe that a guy gets suspended 2 games for like saying something in the heat of the moment. These baseball players, they get berated by the fans. I mean, any of us have done it when we're had a couple too many at a game, and for the player to come back and say, a gay slur, I mean, to your point, it's 2017, so everything's blown out of proportion. Right. But the fact that they're suspending him for 2 games, I just think that's overblown. I'd rather just fine the guy, like, hit him where it hurts rather than like having him not be able to play 2 games. Like, the fan won't get. I'm not even sure the fan's like offended. He's just like, oh my God, this guy said this to me. Like, I don't really see the point in like suspending him for 2 games because he, said something that was a little, inappropriate in the setting.
Well, you know how much this happened all the time, and like this has happened throughout history. Never mind right now, but like this, if this happened in the early 2000s, for example, no one gets fined, no one gets suspended. It's 2017. You can't say that stuff nowadays. Matt Joyce is dumb for saying it, but I also think Major League Baseball, they overreacted in the suspension, in my opinion. I mean, I don't condone the things that he says. I would never really go out of my way to just call someone that. We all say things we don't mean in the heat of the moment. Matt Joyce did that, and being suspended 2 games is a little much by the MLB. They need to like chill because I think MLB they know that they had to do something, and they were like, oh, we're going to suspend 2 games so we can make a real statement on this. And that way the Twitter police and all the like PC police can be like, oh, MLB handled this correctly, which I don't think they did. I think a fine would have sufficed.
Yeah,
can you imagine John Rocker? I mean, how many games would that guy get suspended for?
He would do it in press conferences. He would say that kind of shit.
Yeah, and then Matt Joyce does it to a fan, like in the heat of the moment, and gets suspended. John Rocker would never play a Major League Baseball ever because he'd just be suspended all the time.
I know. I just think like Matt Joyce, he could have denied it and it probably would have gone away, but he like stood up and said, yeah, I said it. I apologize. I think you have to give a guy credit that makes a mistake and owns up to it, especially in this day and age where everyone wants to deny, and doesn't take any accountability. He stood up and said he was wrong. Like, just kind of move on. That's just my take.
Yeah, and it's not like he's out there with the agenda to be like to call someone a gay slur. Like, it's in that sense. People use that word in a way like I'll call my friend that, but I don't mean that he's like I'm not using it against gay. Like, I just call him that because he's my friend. I'm messing around, busting his balls. Like, I don't like using that word. I'm just saying it as an example. People don't use it. It's like that Louis C.K. I don't know if you're a Louis C.K. guy, but that's actually a huge part of his skit where he's just like, no, I'm just calling you that just to call it because that's what you're being. The gays are fine. Well, like, that's what you're being right now. Like, that's it just reminds me of that skit. And I think that's the world we live in nowadays where we don't mean it literally. We mean it like that's where that line is. It's tough. It's tough to really draw that line.
I mean, he brought locker room talk onto the field and someone was pissed about it. Like, that's pretty much what happened.
Exactly. So we got another, speaking of the A's here, they traded away a big piece of that team. I mean, the A's are going nowhere this year, obviously, but they traded away an all-star for a guy I've never heard of in my life. The Mariners are in the wild card race, and they got this all-star, Yonder Alonso. Mariners desperately needed a first baseman, and they got him. Yonder Alonso could really help the Seattle Mariners as they make a playoff push. I still don't know if it gets them into the playoffs, but if they're going to really make a run for it, I think this helps a lot. So Yonder Alonso, an all-star to the Mariners. The A's got some dude named, I think it's Boog Powell. Boog
Powell, yeah.
Boog? I don't know who this guy is. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, I think he's just like a minor league guy. Like I don't think he's good or anything of the like.
I think he has a PED suspension already under his belt too, which is, anytime you can get a guy like that in your squad, I don't know. But the Mariners, I'm going to give them, we do grade that trade a lot. This is like almost not even worth grading because I think for the Mariners, and it's an A. The A's, it's like an incomplete because who cares? Yonder Alonso, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Is he a rental? If he's a rental, then I understand the A's move. If they could keep him for a few years, I think it's a little different. But I don't know. All I know is that the A's aren't going anywhere, so it really doesn't matter who they give up at this point.
To your point, like, I'm surprised more teams weren't in on this. He obviously cleared waivers, so it allowed him to be traded. Yeah. I'm surprised the Yankees weren't in on him. I'm surprised the Red Sox weren't in on him because they both need first baseman. He is a rental till the end of the season.
Okay.
I'm just surprised. Like Boog Powell, I'm looking at. He's like a 190 career hitter in the MLB. I don't know. Like the A's should have traded him before the deadline. I think his value was more then. They could have got more than Boog Powell. I mean, if Boog Powell's the going rate for an all-star, I think every team would have been in on this trade. I'm just surprised that he ended up going to the Mariners, who, like you said, I mean, they're on the outside looking in right now, the playoff hunt. I think Alonso could have helped a lot of teams that are like pretty secure in their playoff push.
Yeah, it was an interesting move. It came out of nowhere. I didn't think Alonso was going to go anywhere. Of course, that was the non-waiver trade deadline. Alonso clearly was on waivers, which means he can be traded at any point. But my point is that Yonder Alonso should have been traded, like you said earlier, to a contending team. The Mariners, yes, they have a need at first base, but you just expect that a team, like you said, that like the Red Sox, the Yankees, a division lead, like any team but the Mariners would make a move for a guy like Yonder Alonso at this point in time. So it was surprising. It popped out of nowhere in the middle of the day. Didn't expect that to happen. Over on the National League, this is going to be an interesting little debate here because we might agree on something, but we're going to pose this question on Twitter at Eephus Pod because I'm interested in what people have to say right now. NL MVP. We got a tight race between four guys in particular. Those guys being Bryce Harper, Paul Goldschmidt. Those two guys I feel like are in it every year. But then you got Charlie Blackmon of the Rockies and Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger is obviously the NL Rookie of the Year. He's a shoo-in for that. But the fact that he's making a running for MVP is amazing too. I'm kind of reminiscent of Corey Seager in that sense. So the season ends today. There's no more season after this. Who has your vote?
This is interesting. I'm like split between Goldschmidt and Blackmon. I'm gonna have to go Blackmon though.
Okay.
I know Arenado. Blackmon has Arenado and.
Oh, Arenado's the other guy. I didn't write him down. Arenado's the other guy who can be in the conversation here. But yeah, keep going. Sorry.
I just think when a guy's having like a career year, like you said, Goldschmidt and Harper are usually in it every year. But Blackmon having the year he's having is propelling the Rockies to where they are. So when a player does that, has that type of season, the Rockies were under 500, and now they're pretty much set for a playoff berth this year. And it's pretty much because Charlie Blackmon's having, one of the best years of his career, one of the best years in baseball this year. So to me, that's what the MVP is. And he does it all over. He does it in center field. He does it. He comes up with clutch hits. He had another one the other night. I just think Charlie Blackmon is the MVP.
I love Charlie Blackmon. I think he's an amazing player, obviously. I think he's going to be probably top 4, top 5 for MVP. But my pick is going to be Paul Goldschmidt. This is a guy who probably should have already won the award once or twice already in his career. He's gotten runner-up twice with the award. He's a 5-time All-Star. I think this is the year it finally happens, and it's well-deserved because he's actually on pace for the best season of his career. He already has all those amazing seasons under his belt, and this one is the best. So I think you got to reward him. You got to give him MVP. It's a tight race, like I've just mentioned, with 5 guys, but I think Goldschmidt separates himself from the pack because A, the Diamondbacks are contending this year. I don't think many people thought that was going to happen. And B, I just think Goldschmidt, he's great in every aspect of the game. Harper, it's not like, I mean, he makes a nice defensive play every now and then, but he's not known for his defense. Paul Goldschmidt is a great glove at first base. He's a great hitter. Like, I steals like around 30 bases per year. He's as close as you can get to a 5-tool player. Mike Trout is the guy you think of when you think of a 5-tool player, but Goldschmidt is right there along. He's not like quite the guy Trout is, but he's no slouch. He's not far behind.
Yeah, he's like the prototypical, like, when you think of 4 hitter in your lineup, you think of like Paul Goldschmidt, like knocks in RBIs, he's 5 tools for sure.
I'm also surprised that, I mean, Arenado isn't getting a lot of love. He's the clear leader on the Rockies. Blackman, he's right. He's like the Robin to Arenado's Batman sort of, but Arenado's the clear leader. And I think year in and year out, he's like the number 3, number 4 guy for MVP, even though he's leading a team that has no business being in the running right now. On paper anyways. I don't know. I think Arenado, he's gaining in popularity, but I don't think people are giving him a lot of credit. Still, I think it's just like, oh, this guy's really good, but then we're going to put these 4 guys automatically ahead of him because of their names. So Arenado would probably be my runner-up there. I'd probably go Goldschmidt, Arenado, Harper as my top 3. Who would be your runner-up and number 3?
Definitely Goldschmidt as my runner-up. 3, I'd probably have Arenado and then Harper. Okay. I mean, to me,
that's interesting that you have Harper 4.
The Nationals, they have a couple guys that are having career years. Like Rendon's having career years. Zimmerman's having maybe his best year ever. Right. I just think those guys having great years is more making the Nationals better. I don't think it's Harper having like I mean, he's having a great year, but he's not having like an unreal year like where he's carrying them every game.
Right. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. We have a long ways to go. Over a month of baseball, we're going to see probably a couple of those guys not do what they've been doing all season. They're going to fall off, and then we're going to probably have only 2 or 3 guys to pick from in this race. So we'll see who drops off, who keeps it going. Now we'll get into Yu Darvish, Sonny Gray. They're both on new teams. Darvish with the Dodgers, Sonny Gray with the Yankees. I would say their debuts went very differently. Not that Sonny Gray did poorly, but Yu Darvish was just that good. Darvish, 7 scoreless innings, I think 12 strikeouts against the Mets. I don't really need to go too far into that. I mean, that's just clearly an outstanding performance by him. So Yu Darvish looks like he's going to fit right in with LA. What do you got on Darvish for that start and for the future of his maybe short future in an LA uniform?
Yeah, he strikes me as this guy that was like, when he was with Texas, he was sort of not not built on winning. Like, they weren't winning, so he wasn't pitching well. He needed sort of that juice of like a race of a World Series contender. And he has that with LA, so I think he's stepping up to the plate now. I don't want to say he was like pitching badly on purpose to get traded, but I think with this newfound team with the Dodgers, like probably the best team in baseball right now, he's reinvigorated, and we saw that was the old Yu Darvish versus the Mets. I mean, it is versus the Mets, so let's take it with a grain of salt. But I mean, 12 strikeouts, he went deep into the game, which is big for him because he usually is at like 100 pitches in the 5th, and he actually got some outs on soft contact. So I think it was overall, I mean, the Dodgers can't be, more happy based on his first performance. They got the old Yu Darvish.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, I think a change of scenery helps guys like Darvish so much. Darvish was kind of just stuck in this team that was just flatlining, I guess you can say. Like, they weren't going anywhere. They weren't like, there was no direction in Texas. He didn't know where the team was heading. Now in LA, I mean, you got a team that I think is like 40, and this is just a rough estimate. I could be like kind of off here, but like I think they're like 44-6 or something in their last 50 games, which is insane. So you got this team that could easily win the World Series this year. I think they're far and away the best team in baseball right now. They have so much young talent. I think it reinvigorates your career when you go to a team like that, as opposed to a team that you really don't know if they're ever going to make it even back to the playoffs, never mind deep in the playoffs. So Darvish, I think it's a product of a change of scenery. As for Gray, I was huge on Gray going to the Yankees. Never thought he was going to be as much of a difference maker as a guy like Yu Darvish. Yu Darvish is he's on a whole nother tier as a pitcher. Sonny Gray is kind of on that like second or third tier of pitcher. I think Yu Darvish is a Cy Young candidate year in and year out. Now with Gray, he went 6 innings, allowed 4 runs. 2 of those runs were earned, so not all 4 were earned. Only on 4 hits, struck out 6, walked 4. So it's like a solid outing. It wasn't anything to write home about, but it was solid. He got the loss though. So that was Sonny Gray's debut. What do you got on him?
Yeah, given the tough spot when you pitch at Cleveland, with how Cleveland's been playing, that's a tough start, especially with a new team, new catcher. I don't think his defense helped him out. I think he had like 2 or 3 errors in the first inning too. So I watched some of the game. I think it was a good outing based on what I expected from Sonny Gray, because I'm not too high on Sonny Gray, but I thought it was a good outing based on the spot and what the team was doing behind him.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely good. You can't say it was a poor outing because he allowed 4 runs. It's like the box score is kind of deceiving there. If you actually sat back and watched the game, you would see that his loss had more to do with the Yankees just sucking than him. Like, his team was not helping him, especially like you said in that first inning where it was just error after error. And when you get off that kind of that wrong foot and there's nothing you can really do about it, I think it takes something out of you. And he didn't really have – I mean, he was fine the rest, but he didn't have like that ace – I guess I don't want to say mentality, but he wasn't just like that. He was doomed from the beginning, in other words. So Sonny Gray, Darvish, both good starts. I'm very, very interested to see how those 2 teams do from this point on, and how just those 2 players perform with their new teams. That's one of my favorite things about baseball is just new players, new teams, how they perform. I think it's one of the better sports for that type of thing. Now we're gonna move on here to a segment. We got football season starting soon. Before we know it, it's going to be football season. Now, of course, we don't talk football on the podcast, but we're going to make one exception because with football season starting, we're going to relate it to baseball. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a coach, we're going to pick a QB, running back, 2 wide receivers, and a tight end, all from baseball players. Now, before we get into it, I want to establish, can this be all-time baseball players? Or does it have to be people active right now?
I did active right now.
Okay, so all of mine are active baseball players with the exception of the coach, which is where I'm going to start. My coach, I couldn't think of a better guy, Lou Piniella. Lou Piniella is going to be walking up and down the sidelines, yelling. He's going to get in the ref's face. That guy is going to go bonkers from the beginning of the game to the end. I want a guy like that coaching my football team.
I picked Buck Showalter, half because his name just, if it was like a deep South college football coach, I wouldn't even know the difference. I think he's from Mississippi, so he strikes me as a football guy. He's cool, calm, and collected, and then he sort of blasts when he needs to blast. So I'll go with Buck Showalter as my coach.
Buck Showalter strikes me as like an Andy Reid type of coach. I think that's his style of coaching football. If he were to coach football, I think he would have Andy Reid's playbook. I don't know why I think of that, but it's just what popped in my brain right there and then, so it must be true. QB, I'm sorry I got to do this to you. My QB is Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow, I mean, this guy is just jumping back and forth between football and baseball. He's on my football team. You said baseball players. You didn't say MLB, even though Tim Tebow is probably going to be an MLB one of these days. He's my QB. So right now I got Lou Piniella and Tim Tebow. How about that dynamic?
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm sure Tebow won't take kindly to being ringed out by Lou Piniella on the side.
That'll be interesting.
In my quarterbacks, I like, tall, big, strong-armed guys. So I'm gonna go with Giancarlo Stanton. I think he has one of the best arms. He's got the body of a quarterback. He can stand in the pocket, take some hits, sort of a Cam Newton type, without the attitude. So I think I'll go with Giancarlo Stanton as my quarterback.
Okay, interesting. Running back, I have Mookie Betts. That's my running back. Speedy. He's small. He's low to the ground. pad level's low, so you know, he can squeak through the tackles. I think he's kind of like a jitterbug. I think he can move quickly. I think he'd be a great running back. I don't know if he has any football experience or anything. He probably does because he's a hell of an athlete. So that's my running back, Mookie Betts.
Yeah, you almost have to go one of two ways here, like the short, jittery running back or the big, just like bruiser. I sort of went. I don't know which one this guy is. Malik Smith from the Tampa Bay Rays.
Okay.
Plays center field, 5'10", 180. Seems like a good size for a running back. I was looking at like stats on who's the fastest runners in the MLB, and he's up there. So I like that breakaway speed in my running backs. He can catch out of the backfield. He plays outfield. So I'll go with Malik Smith.
Good pick so far. Good pick so far. My number one wide receiver. This was an easy one. It's Jeff Samardzija. The guy played wide receiver for Notre Dame. We saw that play. I don't know if it was this past week or the week before, but where he just caught the ball out of the air barehanded and then got the guy out at home plate, which was a great play, and it showed off a little bit of that wide receiver experience. Guy caught balls from Brady Quinn. I mean, he's my number one wide receiver. He's got that experience.
Yeah, the Shark. I mean, wide receiver at Notre Dame, that's high praise.
Yeah.
Anytime. So I went with like a similar built wide receiver, actually. I went with Bradley Zimmer from the Indians.
Okay.
He kind of reminds me of Samardzija. They're both like 6'5", 230, 240. You know, those big possession wide receivers that have great hands. So Zimmer and Samardzija, I think, are like pretty much prototypical big, strong wide receivers. So I went with Bradley Zimmer on my first wideout.
All right, so on to wide receiver number 2. This was an easy one for me. So I got Jeff Samardzija. He'll probably catch routes over the middle, maybe do some like, you know, curl routes, like short little dinky passes. This guy is just going to run straight, and you hope he catches the ball. Billy Hamilton. That's my number 2 wide receiver. He's going to be like a Darius Hayward-Bay type where I don't know if he'll be able to catch the ball, but he'll burn every single defender in sight. So he's my number 2 wide receiver.
Who'd you just pick? Sorry, you went out.
Billy Hamilton.
Oh, Billy Hamilton, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he should be able to catch. He plays the outfield, so.
There you go. That's another reason.
I went with a similar guy. Like, I mean, obviously we're both Patriots fans. We pretty much built the slot quick wide receiver that gets in and out of routes, gets those 5 to 6 yards, but can also break it like an Edelman type. So I went with D. Gordon from Miami. I mean, I don't want him running over the middle because he would get absolutely lit up. He weighs like 120, so I'll keep him outside the boundaries, just those little out routes, and maybe I would just tell him to go down once he catches the ball. Like, don't even try to get hit because he would get blown up.
Can you imagine just a middle linebacker or someone just going over the middle and just decking D. Gordon? You know, like that would be.
Oh my God, he'd clean his clock.
He wouldn't be able to move. I don't think after that. I think he'd be done. My tight end is a guy you already said. I mean, you know what? No, I'm going to change it up here because I don't want to use a guy that you already said. My tight end is Aaron Judge. Originally it was Giancarlo Stanton, but you already used him, so I'm not going to use him. He's on your team. Therefore, I'm going to take Aaron Judge for obvious reasons. He's a beast. The guy weighs like 1,000 pounds. He's like 12'5". So Aaron Judge is my tight end.
Yeah, I had Aaron Judge too. So I think I have to change my pick now. I mean, Aaron Judge is the prototypical tight end.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If you had any other answer, I mean, it would just be stupid, you know, because he's built like a Gronk type. So, I mean, I'll have to go with Aaron Judge. I really don't have another option here.
All right, so we both have Aaron Judge. He's like that guy who, like, say the teams are uneven in wiffle ball, you just have him play. You just have him hit for both teams. He'll be like that when our teams face each other. He'll play for both teams at tight end.
Yeah, he's like Pablo Sanchez. Like, you have to have him on your team.
Here's a spur of the moment question because we don't have defenses right now. You can take one MLB defense to be your football defense. Who is it?
Like
it's a tough question.
One full team's defense?
Yeah, but I can't, like, you can kind of use any reasoning behind it. I'm just throwing it out there only because we don't have defenses yet on our list. If you could pick one defense to play football, what would it be? I think I have mine.
I'm like deciding between two teams. I think the Kansas City Royals would be a good one. They have a good mix of quickness, and they have a guy like Moustakas and Salvador Perez who would they could deliver some hits across the middle. And then the Brewers. I think the Brewers might have the worst defense in MLB, but I think they'd actually be a good NFL defense just because they have athleticism and some big guys. You got guys like Travis Shaw, Manny Pena behind the plate, Eric Thames, who's reminds me of Sean Merriman with the big muscles, probably on steroids. So I'd go with those two teams just based on them being good NFL defenses.
Now, my answer, I kind of screwed myself with this because thinking of it was a lot tougher than I thought it would be. Spur of the moment. I'm going with the Yankees, though. And I know I'm kind of cheating here because Aaron Judge, I have him at tight end. I guess he'll just play both positions for me. I don't really know how this is all going to work, but this is hypothetical here. Aaron Judge, you don't want to get hit by that guy. You also have Brett Gardner, who I think that guy would kill someone. I think he's a psychopath. I think he might actually kill someone on a football field, and that's the kind of guy I want on my defense. As for the other guys, I don't really know. Like Todd Frazier, I think he'd be pretty good. I think he could tackle some dudes. Off the top of my head, this is a tough question. Might not have been as good of an idea to include defense as I thought it was. So we'll move on to our last segments. We'll start with Dud of the Week. Zach, you can start with this one.
My Dud of the Week. So I use my Dud of the Week to keep a guy in check who's had a good season, but he's had a bad week. So I'm going to go with Ryan Zimmerman for my Dud of the Week.
That was mine, Ryan Zimmerman. Yep.
He's hit 100 this week. And I think earlier in the season, I asked you if you thought he was going to hit 400. And that just comes off as a stupid question now because he's hitting 308 and he hit 100 this past week. So just to keep him in check, I'm going to go with Ryan Zimmerman as my Dud of the Week.
Ryan Zimmerman's my pick. I mean, it's kind of unfair, I think, for us to put him on Dud of the Week with the season he's been having, but he's had a really, really bad week. So it was tough to not put him on the list. So he's my Dud of the Week as well. And we always make the graphics now. Like we make graphics now for our Dud of the Week picks. Unanimous picks Ryan Zimmerman. It's just going to be a picture of Ryan Zimmerman this week. So that's like the Matt Strom Award. When it's a unanimous Dud of the Week, that's called the Matt Strom Award. So Ryan Zimmerman.
Didn't we both have Matt Strom? Some random week we both had Matt Strom, no name guy.
Yeah. So this is officially when it's the Dud of the Week and it's unanimous. That's the Matt Strom Award officially starting today. So the first ever Matt Strom Award winner, Ryan Zimmerman, congratulations. Now we'll move lastly to When You're Hot, You're Hot. We might have the same pick here too. I'm going to say that.
You go first.
I have a backup just in case. But for this one, my pick is Tim Beckham. This guy gets traded from the Rays to the Orioles and becomes the best player of all time. I mean, Tim Beckham, I think he was a number one pick at one point, right? He was a pick,
definitely.
And he never lived up to it. And now all of a sudden he gets moved to the Orioles and he's just on fire. There's no hotter player in baseball right now than Tim Beckham. So that's my pick. Yeah,
so we didn't have the same pick here. So we'd have to think of the opposite of the Matt Strom Award for the When You're Hot, You're Hot.
I know.
So I'm going to go with Wilson Contreras from the Cubs.
That was my backup. That was my backup pick in case you took Beckham.
This guy's been unreal. I mean, I didn't know too much about this guy. Obviously, the Cubs have a lot of other stars. He kind of takes a back seat, but he hit 5 home runs this past week, hit over 400, 13 RBIs. He's been their best player the past couple of weeks while Rizzo and Bryant and Schwarber have been sort of struggling. So Wilson Contreras is hot right now. So that's my When You're Hot, You're Hot of the Week.
I can't imagine where the Cubs would be without Wilson Contreras right now. The Brewers are right behind them in the Central. I think they're a half game back as we speak. So without Contreras, and you just put say you have Montero starting as the Cubs catcher right now, and you don't have Contreras, the Cubs aren't division leaders. I think he makes that much of a difference on that team right now. So Wilson Contreras, awesome pick. That pretty much wraps up the show today. So unless you got anything else, Zach, I think that's it.
No, I think we covered everything in the week.
All right, so be sure to subscribe on iTunes and leave a 5-star review. I noticed, Zach, we got a new review this week.
You got to shout it out then.
It wasn't a funny one. I always say the funniest reviews will be read on the podcast. But I think
we got to take what we can get. We got to take what we can get.
We have to take what we can get. So I think that means I got to throw this person a bone for being a nice individual, leaving a review. First off, I do have to question them on one thing. Their username is The American Feminist. That's their username on iTunes. So I don't know if that's like I don't know. I don't want to ask questions, but I had to bring that up first. But The American Feminist says, their subject line says strong podcast. And it says very funny podcast that combines humor and knowledgeable baseball talk. So The American Feminist throwing a little shout out. So I'm glad we got that. And as usual, we'll give shout outs if we get more reviews. They have to be 5 stars, of course, but we'll give shout outs. And so do that, subscribe, download all that shit, and follow us on Twitter at Eephus Pod, where we post highlights, we post polls, we post a lot of shit along with our episodes. So do that. Like us on Facebook, and we have a new Instagram account. It's not active yet. We're going to get there, but if you want to jump on the bandwagon early, you can also follow us there at Eephus Pod. So same thing as Twitter. Both of them are at Eephus Pod. Follow, subscribe, download, like, all those fucking terms. Do it. See you later.